Okay, but does anybody have any ideas on why it's particularly unsafe for
This gentleman does.
someone to fly into Telluride Airport at night? Because other airports have night flights, and they also have people who are flying in that might not have that much experience. So why is that particular to Telluride though? Did you want to volunteer yourself and then go ahead?
My name's Richard Arnold, and I used to be the airport manager before Rich Nuttall. I'm also a current flight instructor and instrument flight instructor, and I've taught a lot of people to fly, including night qualifications, of course. My concern is safety, and it's based on essentially two different levels of safety. The airlines won't allow a pilot to fly into any airport at night unless they've been in there in the daytime and they're airport qualified for that facility. In the handout, you see that some of the major charter operators say they won't fly in here at night. They've determined that it's just maybe a little too risky. Let me say that I think that general aviation probably should never be allowed to fly in here at night. And that's a very strong statement. And it can be countered, I'm sure, very quickly by somebody saying the FAA won't discriminate. And I would stand up, raise my hand as long and hard as I could and say, let's discriminate, if it's going to happen, so that professional airline crews can fly in here at night. This then opens the door to the discussion about, well, wait a minute, you're a professional pilot, you're a flight instructor, won't you come in here at night? My answer is no, and I own an airplane qualified to fly in here at night. There's too many variables in flying in here at night. The airlines would not come in here at night unless they were utilizing the instrument approach. And as someone in the back room said, the approach is not as, let me use the layman's terms, not as accurate as an ILS approach at other airports. In a Grand Junction, you can fly down to within 200 feet of the runway and a quarter-mile visibility. That's, from here up to the coffee shop. Here you have a couple thousand feet and much greater distance. Why? Because the FAA said that we need more room here. There's mountains nearby, and we need to make sure this pilot can get in and get out. If a pilot were flying in here at night and he flew the instrument approach as a general aviation pilot, that means he's not a charter pilot in my conversation here. He's not an airline pilot. He's flying his own airplane in from wherever. And he doesn't see the airport until he gets right to the missed approach point. And if he sees it, he's legally allowed to go ahead and land the airplane. The problem is that missed approach point is way up here at the end of the runway. Okay? So all of a sudden, he's on his own now from this point. He's been pretty well maneuvered electronically to that point. But all of a sudden, he's on his own. He's going to make a right turn, hopefully, not a left turn, to circle down. He's going to, if he can see the airport, and I jokingly have said in the past, flying at night in the mountains with snow on the ground, with no clouds, you almost have to wear sunglasses. It's so bright with the reflective light. That isn't always the case. And the FAA doesn't discriminate with that. Which means that he's on his own. If he's never been in here before, and he doesn't have a lot of night experience, he's never been in the daytime, that guy's probably going to have a problem. And I'm picking on the, quote, underqualified pilot, which can be argued all night, I can balance that maybe by saying that the accidents over in Aspen, where I used to live, and by the way, I was the airport manager in Aspen too, killed 21, 22 people over there by professional, qualified pilots. Can it happen? Absolutely.
Okay.
I'm saying discriminate. If it's going to happen, I'm kind of on the fence here. I'm not with a lot of the people in this room that are saying absolutely no night flights. I'm still not sure yet. But I am saying 100% that general aviation should not be allowed to fly in here at night.
Okay, was there somebody back here who wanted to say something on this topic of safety? Go ahead.
Jim Sukup, I'm with Last Star Development. The other issue is the noise abatement procedures that we've all agreed to that would be in effect with night flights. So if you add in what Richard said, with the current noise abatement procedures, we have a fiasco on our hands.
Can you explain that to me, though, layman's terms?
Pilots are supposed to adhere to a certain landing pattern that's supposed to be noise sensitive. But when in fact, when they're landing, they can do whatever they want. And if they violate the noise abatement procedure, they're supposed to watch a movie that the TRA has that shows them how to properly obey the noise abatement procedures that are in effect for this airport. So one would have to argue, what are we going to do with the current noise abatement policies that are in effect that we've all agreed to? So if you come in on a night flight and you've already been shown the movie and you're trying to adhere to the noise abatement, when in fact it's a safety issue, it could only make the situation worse and compound the safety problem.
Okay. I want to ask a question, and please don't shoot me or anything, but if we could do something like Richard said and restrict it to not allow general aviation and only allow commercial, how many people would be in favor of the night flights till 10? Just raise your hand if you could do that. And I'm saying hypothetically because I don't know the answer to that, but Richard,
When you
proposed
say
that.
commercial, do you mean just scheduled airlines?
I'm talking about the general idea of a commercial airline.
Commercial
versus
airlines.
Just
That's
someone who
what
has
we're-
their own personal airplane and they're flying it in there, right?
As opposed to
Commercial
charter, we're not
versus-
saying charters, we're saying
Yeah.
commercial,
So
scheduled,
who would be for
I
that?
would be for that.
Who would be for that?
scheduled.
We have about 5 or so. How many people are still against it, even in that case? So we.
But let me,
And
it's
the rest be
moved.
neutral. Okay. Well, I just wanted to see
But
what.
let me
what
I can give
we're-
you some
what
history
we're
on it.
talking about here.
Aspen tried to stop that. Aspen had commercial, and they tried, at least from 90 to 94, to stop it before they got slapped by the FAA, and they said, you're gonna do it, or you're losing your funding. As an interesting aside, Don Henley spent $250,000 of his dollars trying to prevent that happening. There is no airport, to my knowledge, that has been able to successfully fight the parity issue.
It's true. That's a good point.
And subsequent to that, there were 2 night flights into Aspen. One, where actually, as Dick was saying, the pilot made a left rather than a right. He had 10,000 hours. He worked for Avjets. And the 3 crew and 15 passengers all perished. And there was another flight a few years later where 3 people perished.
Okay. You had something?
I'm kind of like him, I'm kind of on the fence, but I would go more to the way the plane is equipped. And I think it would have to be equipped for precision approach and have terrain awareness and have enhanced ground proximity warming indicators also on the plane. And if you had all of that with the terrain awareness, you would not turn the wrong way. And so if the plane's properly equipped, I think you can operate safely here. But I don't think that that means either commercial or private, because I don't think the commercial planes that are operating here have that right now.
So you're saying if they have some kind of special instrumentation that allows
Terrain
them to be able
awareness
to
warning system.
at night. Now, does anybody know, is that even a possibility of restricting it in that way to say, okay, these planes can come in at night and these can't? Does anybody know? You?
I had a question for Mr. Arnold. I was told by a pilot today that there is some kind of instrument approach on runway 90. And what is that system, and is that system adequate for a commercial airline operating at night?
That's a tough question. Probably not.
Then this is a moot point.
No, it's a moot point.
They can't land here at night. We don't have the stuff to let them land here.
Just to make the conversation a little bit more complex. I can go out and spend $10,000-12,000 and actually have night goggles and come in here absolutely as black as possible, not be able to see anything. And there's a runway just like a picture right in front of me. Does that make it safer? Well, obviously. Military's been doing it for years. Is it practical? Does it happen in our aviation community now? Actually, it's starting to, but it's prohibitive. And so the answer really is no, it's not gonna happen.
My question is, even with that, if there's obscuration, they're not gonna
Nope.
close the airport
And you
down.
can't see
So,
the-
and there's often obscuration.
You can't see that at night. Another problem.
Obscuration, what's that?
Clouds. You cannot
Clouds.
see clouds at night.
Does anybody, go ahead.
Shauna Palmer, and I'd just like to say that as somebody who was at every single hearing when the special use permit was granted, what I have not heard addressed until tonight, we've started to address it, is all the reasons that the county put those restrictions on it in the first place when they granted the permit. All the reasons that people didn't even want the airport at all, but it was granted with these restrictions. And when I read the stuff in the paper from the airport authority, it's all about money, 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 money. And of course, that's going to benefit some people more than others, depending on which economic sector actually gets served in, better service by this. I just want it to be dealt with on the record of not only everything we've come up with tonight, but there may have been other things that were in there that was basically promised that we would never have to put up with night flights if we did approve the airport.
Wait, so
And-
I think that's something we can put on here though.
And so I'm just saying that promises, this is why people get cynical about their government, because it means nothing.
Right, promise. It was,
Right.
so can you say that again? It was, what was promised exactly?
Promises that were made in terms of the restrictions that were put on there, maybe they didn't think of them as promises, but the permit was granted based upon these restrictions, and each one of those reasons, whether there's something in addition to what we've come up with, maybe not, maybe we've covered them all tonight, but we should be going back to that record, and the airport authority should have to address every one of those reasons.
So
And
you're,
and I would also just like to say, Alicia's not the only one. I've spent quite a bit of time in Lawson Hill, and there are planes coming in way too close to those houses as far as I'm concerned, in broad daylight.
so the regional airport authority promised, is that who, that's who made the promise?
I'm just saying that the permit was
Okay.
granted
Right.
based upon things that wouldn't happen. And now they're just saying, oh, but it's better economically if we do it.
Okay,
That's not
Oh.
enough of a discussion.
go ahead, George.
I'd love to get a sense of how much of the opposition in this room comes from last dollar Lawson Hill specific resident homeowner concerns versus other issues. Is this a group of people who live at Last Dollar or Lawson Hill who don't want the noise and the light and the fuss, or is this a generalized community concern? Could we get a show of hands to find out how many people here are from Last Dollar subdivision?
Okay, I can do that, and if you guys don't, if you don't want to raise your hand, you don't want to do that, but how many of you are from Last Dollar? Is that what you want to
We
know?
say the area, the local airport
The
area.
local airport, Last Dollar in the local airport area?
El Desaro.
El Tesoro? Oh, those areas.
Yeah.
No, and I'm not raising my hand because I live in Long Village.
I'm sorry.
Okay. Go ahead. And
Local airport area, so-
It's like, I'd like to add,
So, and wait, where are the rest of you from though? Are you from Telluride? Telluride, we have a couple, 3, 4.
Just right.
How about Mountain Village area? Nobody?
Ski ranches.
Ski ranches? Okay.
About 30%.
So I think it's,
Okay, I'd
Pretty
also like
diverse.
to know how many people would like the airport closed altogether. Seriously. I mean, obviously, you.
No,
what I'd like to do.
I'd like it to be operated under the permit that it was.
I'd like to continue with these. Are